Hello and welcome to Unrecognised Heroes, the official podcast brought to you by the National AI and National Cyber Awards. This is the podcast where we dive in to the latest innovations, challenges, and success stories in the world of cyber. I'm your host, Ellie, and today I'm excited to be joined by somebody who has made an incredible impact on cyber and education landscape. Alastair, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, lovely to see you.
Let's start at the very beginning, Alastair. You've had such a rich and varied career. I'd love to hear it in your own words. Tell us all about yourself.
This is me. Where to start? It seems a long, long time ago when I left university in Edinburgh. 40 years ago, I came down to England to work with ICI in the chemical industry doing distribution systems, which is really when I first started being aware of security because some of the products that we were putting out into the world, we had to be very careful about. So things like nitrogen fertilizer, if they got in the wrong hands, for example, were they could be used or misused by not nice people. I spent 6-7 years in industry, and I was actually in bed. It was a football injury, and I saw an advert for Newcastle Polytechnic looking for industrialists to come in and get involved with delivery of material for students. I'd really enjoyed that user training bit of the job that I was doing, and so I got involved. I got out of nowhere, sort of going, "I'll give this a go," and they were looking at getting people with industrial experience that could make authentic learning for students. So that was great. I thought this for a couple of years and come back in, and I got stuck. I really found my home, and worked as a senior lecturer for a while, doing all sorts of different topics around. Everybody got to teach programming, so I taught COBOL for a while. I taught systems analysis, and I taught professionalism and ethics. Professionalism and ethics bit started to get me interested in how people used computing and the good for society, and so I joined the BCS at the time, and really grew this part of my subject development, and got more and more interested in cybercrime. At the same time, I got promoted to principal lecturer, still at in Newcastle, and started working with the police in the North. Broad Forum, again looking at that industrial academic partnership with the police as well. So the partnership's something that's important, and I'll keep coming back to it. And that was really interesting. We established a computer forensics lab back in the days when computer forensics was disk forensics, really. And looking at how to it was really the economic crime unit that I was working with. So it was looking at fraud, but that then kind of morphed into understanding other criminal uses of computing and how we could get cyber trails. And at the same time, it was some of the stuff that we were doing was actually quite nitty gritty computer science, and teaching some of that the detailed computer science was quite boring for students. So things like disk geometry, the students hated it, and so I was able to use scenarios from the work that I was doing, obviously anonymized and cleansed, to help get students to try and catch cyber criminals. And we did that by doing disk geometry, but they were doing disk geometry without knowing they were doing disk geometry. So, and then at the end of it, going, ta-da, and now you know about disk geometry. And so that was great fun. We built a cyber digital forensics lab. It was just at the time where um, the whole cost of computing was getting cheaper, so computers were getting bigger, disks were getting bigger. The devices that people could do things with, so games consoles, mobile phones were starting to come on board, and so the whole thing around cyber forensics grew and it evolved and got really, really interesting. Um, at the same time, it was the other side of the coin was cybersecurity. So as I was getting more and more interested in digital forensics, cyber forensics, I was getting very aware of the whole cybersecurity bit. Round about that time, I moved from Newcastle over to Sunderland, on a head of computing job, which was great. But it was also a kind of blank sheet to do some really interesting cybersecurity stuff. And so we created an MSc in cybersecurity, which was great fun to do. And at the same time, with my BCS hat on, working with a number of partners again across the academy, but also providers like ISC Squared, we're looking at how we could get cybersecurity not just into the cybersecurity curriculum, both undergraduate and postgrad, but get it into the computer science curriculum. So people were doing defensive programming. When they were doing database design, they were thinking about cybersecurity. When they're doing web page development, they were thinking about cybersecurity, not as an add-on, but as first principles. And working with the BCS, we were able to change the accreditation criteria for all courses so that there was an expectation that cybersecurity was a metric in that professional body accreditation. So again, was a great example of partnership working together. I'm rattling through 40 years here, and I'm forgetting all sorts of bits. But at the same time, in the northeast of England, where I was based, we looked at developing an industry body. We called it Dynamo, and a group of interested folks from the city councils, from organisations like Accenture and Sage, as well as the universities, got together, and I think it was 8 of us were the kind of founding group around this sector-wide body to tease out how we better used IT across the region. And of course, one of the big things around that was cybersecurity. So there was a strand around Dynamo was around cybersecurity. So that was great. Again, I get about developing partnership and growing
Absolutely.
those partnerships. And then, oh, excuse me, I've now jumped almost 40 years. I went up to Abertay. They had a big project that was approved before I went up there, a cyber quarter project, again, which was around partnerships, bringing industry and academia closer together, and that's working really, really well. And all of those bits around the partnership are making the learning more authentic for students, getting industry involved with academia, so we kind of blur the lines between academia and and sometimes industry partners will give problems to students, so there's an authentic assessment there, or there's a project, or there's a placement, and so you're helping develop the students for employment, and also helping the employers understand what it is that the students can do and
Yeah,
what they can do,
absolutely.
so that they get that when they get the job and they offer a job, that transition is smoother and more effective. So it was 40 years academia in about 2 minutes.
Fantastic. It's fascinating.
The really important things are around you know being flexible, pushing at the boundaries, realizing the opportunities, and working with partners to make sure that the artifact that is enabling the students to learn is appropriate.
You sound so incredibly passionate about it all, Alastair. And as you've described, you spent many years in academia and even in industry, and you've seen the education system evolve. But what would you say is the biggest skills gap right now in between what students are actually learning and what employers in cyber are really looking for?
That's a really good question. And there's a whole set of different ways to look at it, depending on the employer. So you've got SMEs, you've got right up to huge big employers with thousands of folks, and the gap for the employers is different. SME, looking at a very, very particular thing, might say, I want student to be able to do this and this only. And you go, well, that's nice. We'll build that in. How many graduates can you take? And they say one every 6 years. Or they say, well, yeah, okay. Or if there's a generic thing that a skill set that the or technical skills that students are expected to have embraced, then it's easier to build those things in. But you can do things like projects, like placements, and so we can work that skills gap together. But go back to your question. The skills gap tends to be on the very, very specific things that some employers will want. You say, actually, no, these are generic things that the students are coming out with. It's relatively easy to upskill from the generic to the specific, because they've got all the principles, they've got all the understanding, they've got different examples of those specific skills in that technical space. Then there's the softer skills, and the cybersecurity world is a really interesting place for soft skills, and obviously you need to be able to communicate very complex situations in simple terms. But then there's a really interesting sort of dilemma there about taking complex, putting it into simple, but not being patronising.
Yeah.
So a cybersecurity expert coming to talk to a board has to be able to do things in words of one syllable so that they get it and they get the importance of it and they understand the significance and the risk associated with it without them saying, "You people are idiots." So it's being able to read the room and communicate appropriately is something that's really, really difficult to simulate, and it's really, really difficult to get folks to tweak that, because often students are really, really passionate about the technical bit and dive into the technicalities. And if you're talking to a board, you're talking to senior folks, straight over the head. You're talking gobbledygook to me. I don't understand a word of what you're saying. I don't get the significance of it. I don't understand the risk. I don't understand the pound signs. I don't, I don't get what it means for the business. So that's a really interesting one. And then just tweaking the partnership piece round slightly is the group working skills, and this is one of the things that students hate. They hate doing group work, and they just but it's so important, because they're going into environments where we've got people with different perspectives, different backgrounds, different understanding, and different motivations, and trying to get that group to gel together and be a positive member of that group is something that's really, really hard for students to get. And but that is those softer skills, are part of the skills gap, as well as the specific technical things.
It sounds as though, Alastair, that a lot of the teaching sound like elements that in the moment students might perhaps wonder, why am I doing this? How is this going to play a role in my future? But
Yes.
actually, as you've already described, the
Yeah.
partnerships, that plays a role, the way you communicate with the board, that plays a role. It all ties in back together. So I imagine that's really enriching for them.
Definitely, and this is where a placement becomes so important. And it could be a placement, could be a week, or, like intern over holidays, or a 48-week placement between, years of study. And it's when they come back, when students come back from being in that environment, they go, "Ah, actually, I get that. I understand why it's important to be able to write a report that says everything in a summary, it's not a 40-page document, because I now understand that people aren't going to read it, and they just want doing, doing, doing. And the same with how you interact and how you communicate in presentations and the like. So the more engagement there is between academia and industry, I think the better it is for students, and better it is for employers.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've played a key role in shaping cyber education at a national level. So, in your view, how do universities need to evolve to keep pace with the incredibly fast-moving tech landscape?
Yeah, no, it is. Yeah, it's a really Interesting question, and so much of it comes down to the program design and not tying in things like module learning objectives, modules, program learning objectives to be too inflexible. So there needs to be that opportunity to grow and develop. So, you know, it just sounds like a cop out, but it's almost writing or designing programs in such a way that they are give much more of a freedom to take what is the issue of the day kind of thing. Going back to the time when I was in the classroom and so much was going wrong with digital forensics, it was or computer crime. It was great. I would go be listening to radio in the car on the way in. And I thought, oh, that's my lesson for today. And so you can make it real and live and do this, and they've tried to do that with cybersecurity because let's face it, there are so many examples of things going wrong, and you can tease that in and discuss and evaluate the real activity, and then tie it back to the theory and say and this is why Kirchhoff's principles are important because and take it back to the whatever the attack of the day or the week has been. And of course there are classic ones that you can go back to and use those as scenarios for students to work through. But no, it's really important to be able to have that flexibility to say, and here's what's real, and that's one of the nice things about bringing employers in to help with setting assessment, because you can say, here's a problem, here's a real problem, and this has happened over the weekend. It's Monday morning, 9 o'clock. I want you to present a solution to me Friday afternoon, and go. And it's just it's such a really exciting environment for students to learn and do their assessment, and then you do the presentation on a Friday afternoon and say that they've got it right. That was good. Hadn't thought about that. I'll have that one. Put that in the back pocket. And so it can be a win-win situation.
That sounds excellent. It makes the learning suddenly become a lot more tangible, doesn't it? And you can take that into real world situations, just as you've described. And what are
Very much so.
the key attributes or mindsets that you think make the biggest difference between kind of students that are thriving in the cyber sector, just beyond the technical skills? And yeah, you've touched on the soft skills as well.
There are a number of things, and it's the ability to think outside the box is really, really important. Um, Particularly as AI comes in, and like the cyber criminals are using AI, and attack vectors change as they're unleashed, kind of thing. And so that being able to look at a situation, look at a problem, think about the motivations behind a particular attack, and understand what is happening, and what they're getting at, what the target is, and what attack vectors are being utilised, and then think about the defence and how to defend, how to then, and depending where the attack has come, how to recover, how to mitigate against it, how to get back to operation. But it's as well as that, thinking outside the box and being able to like not have there isn't a set answer to everything, is realizing that the first answer might not be the only one, and
Yeah.
keep going, and almost that like kind of dog with a bone, and keep at it and keep at it and keep at it, and trying different things, and being confident is one of the other soft skills about confidence. Being confident enough to say, try that, didn't work. It's okay. Let's try the next thing, and to build on things that way. So, but it's having that mindset that wants to get an answer, and realizing that it's not simple, and it's not like doing arithmetic. There's not one short answer. There are lots of different ways to get at things, and having that understanding that what you're trying to do is make sure that the business is able to, continue. So developing that resilience, developing the recovery, developing the opportunity not to lose reputation, and so understanding all of those bits as it comes together.
Thinking of you now personally, Alastair, I know you've held numerous leadership roles in several universities, and no doubt that comes with its rewards and its challenges. But could you describe a few of those fulfilling moments that you've had during your time in academia and also some of the challenges you've encountered?
Ooh, well, to me, you know, higher education in the UK at the moment is in a really interesting space. Um, the the funding for education is and higher education is constantly under threat. The lack of uh, understanding about how to bring in international students, and the financial losses associated with that become problematic. And yeah, and making sure that we've got the right structures in place to enable, to make it worthwhile to go to higher education. So no, no, I'm going back to general things around the higher education sector in a second, but looking at cybersecurity is actually quite an interesting sort of microcosm. So getting the right academics in place to be able to push the boundaries for the subject is important, which means that they'll attract students so that students will get the skill set and it's worthwhile coming to university. Obviously, that there's always the temptation for academics to go into the private sector and earn more money. So there are things that we need to think about in higher education about rewarding people appropriately. And then if you take that broader and you think, well, what's the value of a degree? And and thinking about what that means in terms of students, in terms of investing time, in terms of putting themselves in debt, getting the students loans, and are they going to get a graduate job at the end of the day? Um, I've got three young people at home here. One's just graduated. One's about to go to university if she gets her A levels. One's in Australia playing football but doing a part-time degree. So there are different ways through. There's degree apprenticeships, there's part-time offerings, there's distance learning, there's hybrid learning. So we're in the post-COVID world. The whole education system's changed, and how people want to access higher education is different. And I'm not sure that the systems, whatever the systems are, that September to July academic year is set up for what it is that people want to go to university need and what employers need. And it's, we're at an interesting crossroads about how things might change and evolve, and how smaller chunks of learning, micro credentials to build up degrees, and so there's still a bar there for people to achieve, but the way they do it might be different moving forward.
It's incredibly interesting hearing your viewpoint on that and the way that the education system is evolving and perhaps needs tweaking. But I want to touch on something you've already mentioned around AI, and just wanting to touch on ethics for a moment with the rise of AI and data privacy concerns and whatnot. How important is ethics in the future of technology, and are we doing enough to embed that into education, do you think?
There's a question. So ethics is incredibly important, and is incredibly important for AI. And one of the fundamental principles that we need to understand is how we use and utilize AI to the betterment of society. And the ethical piece around that is key and fundamental. There's a whole set of ethical things around how AI and AI engines use and utilize data and personal data, and do people understand the personal data, and and, and do people understand what it means to have the various AI activities on their phone or their laptop or whatever. Going back to computer science, which is my background, obviously, and the BCS, the British Computer Society, ethics is one of the fundamental principles around that whole accreditation piece, and how we make ethical use of computing and computer science is key. There are a whole set of things around ethics, around digital forensics, tying in with legal parts as well, but also ethics in cybersecurity, and of course ethics in AI. Once you start to look at ethics in AI and cybersecurity locked together, wow, this is it's and how you use AI in a cyber attack, or how the criminal will use AI in a cyber attack, or how a nation state might use AI in a cyber attack, and then how you use AI in cyber defense. And so you almost set this game of chess off, and it's and the vectors are changing as that attack goes in. And we've got to hope that the defensive use of AI is more advanced than the criminal use of AI. The problem, and a problem we've always had with cybersecurity, is that the bad guys only need to get it right once, have to get it right all the time. So you can have 99 attacks that you're defending against, great, and there's one attack that you miss, and it's the problem is exacerbated. So it's a really fascinating area, which is only going to evolve and develop. And you start to move into the domain of science fiction. But can we use AI to predict criminal activity and stop it before it even has happened? And that then it has a whole set of other ethical questions. So there's a can of worms, and as we start to unopen them, open that can of worms, worms out, worms everywhere. Whoosh! It gets really quite interesting.
You've had such a varied career, and I can tell you have so many more stories to tell, Alastair, from your years in academia and industry. And for anyone that might be listening and being inspired by your journey, what's one piece of career advice that you wish you were given when you were just starting out?
That's a good one. Don't pigeonhole yourself. Is is something that I think is important. I see so many folks that are so passionate about a specific thing, and that's great. And sometimes they get lucky and it opens up the doors for them, but other times it closes doors. Um, I, I've always tried to be slightly different. So as a computer scientist, I focus on cybersecurity. As a cybersecurity person, I focus on education. So then when I'm in an education forum, I'm talking about cybersecurity and talking about computer science. And all the educationists are going, oh, look at him. So it's been that different person in the room. And so the advice would be, don't be frightened about being a different person. It's okay to challenge that norm, and challenge that group think, and yeah, that and be more confident about doing that. I think if I was giving advice to I started in industry when I was about 22, into higher education when I was about 28, 29. My advice would be be more confident.
That's a good one.
It's okay to be, not just to kowtow.
Brilliant. I enjoy that. Don't pigeonhole yourself and be more confident. I like those. I like to end the podcast on a fun note. So I will throw you a left field question now, Alistair. But if you could have one superpower to assist you in your work, what would it be and why? It can be as wacky or as fun as you like.
I'd like to be able to juggle.
Okay.
and be able to juggle properly and do all sorts of different things because um, all through my life and my career, I'm juggling. I've had to juggle stuff, and I'm probably not very good at it. So being able to do that and have as many balls in the air as possible, that would be my superpower. So not drop anything.
I like that as well. We've not had that one before actually, so that was slightly different.
Yeah.
To thank you so much for sharing your insights and your stories and experiences with us all today. It's been such a pleasure talking to you, and I know our listeners will walk away with a lot of insights and a lot learnt about you as well. So thank
Yeah.
you. Is there anything that we've not covered, Alistair, that you'd like to share with the audience? Any final insights and
Yeah.
what's next for you?
Oh goodness. Um, what's next? That's a good question. So I'm getting really, really old. So I'm just thinking about what to do in moving forward. Because a bit of me still feels 21, and and my body, when I try and be 21, it realizes that I'm not. Uh, my son dragged me up a mountain a couple of weeks ago, and I'm still not recovered from it. But no, so thinking about how to really support the next generation of folks is and take on. I've always liked that mentoring piece, and working with folks and helping them have plans to get to whatever the stage that they're trying to get to. So I think probably taking on more of that mentoring activity. And I'm still involved with my professional body, so like pushing the challenges that the professional body has is really, really important. So hoping to continue with that.
Thank you so much for joining us, as I say, and best of luck with your next adventures and whatever comes next for you.
Oh,
If
thank
our
you.
listeners have enjoyed this conversation as much as I have, then please subscribe to our channel and join our community over on LinkedIn. Thank you so much once again. It's been a pleasure.